Coming up next on All About Android, it is a supersized and very fun episode wrapping up all of the announcements and things that were talked about last week at Google I.O. It's me, Jason Howell, Ron Richards, Florence Ion, Wintui Dow, and our guest Mike Wolfson, who joins us each and every year for at least a pre or a post I.O. episode. And we deliver today. So check it out. That's up next on All About Android.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of All About Android is brought to you by Trade Coffee. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/AAA. That's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Get started by taking their quiz and let Trade find you coffee you'll love. Hello and welcome to All About Android. This is episode 578, recorded on Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. Your weekly source for the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. And boy, do we have a supersized show today. I'm Jason Howell.
And I'm Ron Richards.
And I'm Wintui Dow.
And over to Flo. Do the fun. There we go.
Well, you spoiled me. I'm Florence Ion.
I was waiting for it to switch to you. I was like, go there. Now, you might think that this is as big as this show ever gets, is the four of us. But oh boy, do we have news
Bigger.
for you. It's great to have the four of us here, of course. I'm so stoked to be joined by everybody. And then also, we've got someone who, usually is on before Google I.O., but things didn't work out that way this time around. So we have him on for the post-I.O. wrap-up. It's Mike Wolfson. Welcome back to the show, Mike.
Hello, friends and family.
Hello. It's good to see you.
It wouldn't be I.O. season without Mike coming on the show. And I feel
That's
like
right.
we've had him on post I.O. in the past. I feel
have
like
we
I
probably
think so.
have.
It's looking in the schedule now.
It's around this time.
Yeah, it's I.O. season is usually when we see Mike, and you've been on it, a couple of times outside of that rotation as well. But it's always Yep,
here we go.
Oh yeah,
2018 post I.O.
Oh, okay. So, there we go.
So there you go. It's not the first time, but it's got to be, when I think of I.O., I think of Mike Wolfson. So I don't think of Sundar, I think of Mike. So.
Right.
You know what I think of when I think of Google I.O.?
What do you think of?
I think of me and Ron's birthdays.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
Although
this was
sorry
not,
to bring it back to me,
but let me.
not a good year for the birthday. Hopefully you fared better than I. I was in bed with 104 fever on my birthday. So
I was
not COVID, but it was pretty worse. So
I was not down for the count, but I was behind this desk for many, many hours.
Fun time.
It was a rough one this year.
Yes.
And I was so bummed that I was sick and that I missed the show, but I was able to watch I.O. and we were able to do that. I'm feeling much better. Who knew you can get mono in your mid 40s? There you go. I proved it.
Not just for high schoolers.
Not just high schoolers. Yeah. So, but man, when I was watching I.O., I was just like, I can't wait to talk to everybody. So I'm so happy that we're here together.
Yeah, happy to have you here too. And because we have a lot of voices on this show, expect a lot of talking. But hey, it's a podcast. That's what we do. Before we get into any of the news components, the news items, Mike, you were saying earlier in email that you wanted to take a few minutes with everyone because you were actually physically at the event. So were you, Win. So both of you were actually there. Like we were following along, from behind a screen. Y'all were actually at Shoreline. And Mike, you had mentioned wanting to kind of take a few minutes to talk about the experience of I.O. for those of us who weren't actually there. I've been there a number of times. I'm certain, from what you've said and from everything that I've heard and from you, Win, as well, that this year was a whole lot different than any other in-person years. What can you tell us about that?
Okay, totally. So I have been to pretty much every I.O. I'm super lucky to be able to have gone to so many. And this was by far one of the weirdest events I've been to. And I actually wanted to make sure that we had this time to talk so that the people that are feeling FOMO about not being able to attend and feel, left out, maybe don't feel that so much because while I'm super lucky to be able to be there and feel quite blessed in particular because it was such a great time to be with friends and be there for stuff. It was quite an uneventful event and really small and strange on many levels. There wasn't a whole lot, about being there in person that kind of, really stood out. That made it anything amazing.
Well, and so
sort of love to hear what Wen says.
Yeah. Well, and that was kind of where I was going to segue next because, Mike, as you said, you've been to a number of Google I/Os. Was this your first Google I/O, or have you been before? Or?
Oh no, I've been to several. Actually, my first Google I/O was when I first met Mike. When we were doing.
Oh, I see. I misread this. I thought
you misread that.
I thought that meant
sorry.
like this was your first I/O.
I just thought it was funny because I've actually 2015 was my first I/O, and I actually met Mike, and that was when Chuk and I were doing Android Dialogues, and Mike was actually my very first interview ever, so I thought it was kind of like a very nice capper.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I totally remembered that too. That was really fun.
And you were so nice, Mike. I've now been lucky to know Mike for many years, and you were very supportive and very nice, and so now it's nice to it's kind of cool to be on this show with you, Mike, after I/O. It all feels like kind of really cool, really full circle. But I concur with Mike. I haven't been to quite as many, but it was weird. It was definitely uneventful. So basically and it was funny, actually. I remember I met Florina and Nick Butcher and Florina Muntanescu like at the gate, and we were taking that one selfie, and like Flo responded because you could see how empty it was behind us, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty empty. And that kind of carried the rest of the time. We basically had the keynote. I was like, good call out. And the developer keynote. And then we had lunch, and then nothing else. Like, I think actually we met up with, that was it. We met up with Chuki. It was me, my husband, and Chuki kind of walking around trying to see if there was anything else. And they didn't have booths. So I have to say, sorry to Duncan. There were no, because I remember last week, Duncan Jaffe, our guest, asked if there were any droids to buy. There were not. There was not much of anything. I think after the two main events, they had like partner meetups, like Women Tech Makers and other kind of groups like that having receptions. But that's it. We kind of were like, okay, I guess we'll leave. Yeah. So we kind of just meandered out.
Totally like,
and that was it.
The two keynotes happened. I'm sorry to interrupt you. The two keynotes happened.
Oh, no, go ahead, Mike.
And that was kind of interesting. And then afterwards they had lunch. And then it was just kind of nothing. It was 2:00 and there was nothing to do. And we were all kind of just like awkwardly standing around wondering. We socialized for a little while and then we kind of just all dispersed, kind of went back to our, hotel rooms and stuff. But it was just awkward. It was like a missed opportunity. There was no sessions to talk to other Googlers or any sort of formal like demo rooms or anything. It was just
that is really weird. I mean, and it's not like Google didn't mention that this would be different. They said it was going to be kind of a combination of in-person and not, kind of alluding to the fact that the majority of people were going to watch it through their screens, which is exactly what happened. But I kind of felt like, okay, well then there's there are some people going there and there are events or there are presentations, but I think a lot of those presentations, were they not live then? They were just all pre-recorded. And so there was no audience to sit in on things.
Pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm going based
from what
on
I
my
saw,
press intel that they were pre-recorded.
So then here's my question. Why did Google have the in-person thing to begin with? Was this all optics? Was it all optics to say, hey, we're kind of back. We're going to fly out here, get people who are really excited to be there so that the presentation looks good. And there, of course.
Oh, there's me.
Yeah.
100% optics. It's like to show that, this is what's happening across numerous companies and events and things like that to show that we are back and this is what it is. Like it's an attempt to get closer to normalcy. So agreed.
Yeah.
I think it was a test balloon to see if, how they're going to start doing conferences again. I also think they had Shoreline rented probably and, figured they might as well make use of the facility.
Right.
I don't think it was that expensive for them to rent out the amphitheater for like that part. I was thinking about the logistics of it.
Oh, I'm thinking they probably already had it rented, because Google I/O years ago, and so
they probably
and it's like
I feel
like it's pocket change for them to Sorry to speak so flippantly about like money, but
no, but I think you're probably
if
right.
if there was any reason to doubt the safety of the event, they would have shut it down and eaten the money or pushed it to next year, like Mike's saying here.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that was the thing, but that there's a concerted effort for everybody, despite whatever you say about the numbers or whatever you think about your area or things like that. But to look at what's going on with Discovery and the mandate to go back to the office, right? Like, there's just like crazy weird grandstanding around getting people out of their homes on this corporate level. And I think this is an example of that. And watching from home, Mike, like your pictures were kind of startling, but like watching from home, like the shots in the live stream were when they showed the crowd were focused on like people sitting in the crowd, but you could see in the upper left-hand corner, just like the empty seats. Right. Yeah. So like they didn't do a great job of making it look populated, so.
Yeah, I mean, was that their goal? I mean, yeah, I don't know, because I mean, it was pretty obvious that the place wasn't filled, but I also wasn't like judging it for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was like, I get it.
Well, Jason,
it was a limited
would you
audience.
I was just gonna say, if you were invited, would you have gone? But you wouldn't have. So
I mean, as it turns out, I wouldn't have, because fun COVID times. But but if I had been invited, I would have gone. Well, I would have said yes
if you
would have realized I couldn't.
Yeah,
but absolutely, I would have wanted to.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to
go ahead, Mike.
Bring up one thing I wanted to bring up about COVID in particular, and hopefully this will also help, especially the COVID averse, not feel FOMO. They advertised that everybody's going to have to do PCR tests to enter the facility, and if you came the day before, you did get a PCR test. But the morning of I/O, they switched to antigen tests, which are certainly not as accurate. So anyway, in regards to kind of their COVID policies, they kind of even didn't fulfill what they suggested for.
I didn't know that.
So just want to make people more comfortable that if there are people that are still very COVID averse, that I think would have been uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of reasons why if you missed this year's I/O, you probably should feel okay that you.
At least it was outside.
Yeah,
unlike
for sure.
CES, which was completely indoors. And then after CES happened, we had a list of all the people who went back to the countries and brought COVID. I'm thinking of the 17 Samsung employees. That number will never get out of my mind. And so, because when I saw it was outdoors, I was like, oh, I would totally go to that. And I don't do anything because my kid is still not vaxxed.
Right.
So, but I would have gone to that because it's completely outdoors, which is awesome.
Yeah. So I guess final question before we kind of get into news: are you happy you went? Because I mean, for both of you, this was not necessarily this wasn't in your backyard. Both of you had to travel and fly and everything in order to get here and go through the trouble of being here. So are you happy you went? Or I mean, I doubt that you regret going, but like, what are your feelings? Like, if this happened next year, would you go again?
Probably. So a couple things. There was actually one in-person like sort of event, which is like the Android Fireside Chat, which is actually what, which is like the kind of thing that I did that bookended it, and which Burke showed the picture of, and that we got to experience. But that was part of an invite-only Android Roadshow, which is kind of a Google adjacent event. And that, I think, in the sense that was in place of some of the face-to-face, and it was also really interesting to be in the audience while I'm up there on the screen.
Right. That's gotta be strange. Yeah.
It was kind of fun. I would go for that. And I think that's what I miss, is having that direct interaction and conversation with people, especially like the Android fam, which has kind of been one of the best things of my career in my life in the last 5-10 years. So I'm glad to have gone. I'm glad to have gotten to see Mike and our other kind of like Android fan that did get to go. If they did it again, if it was just the keynotes, but I can't help but think that if they had a keynote where you could go, they would also do these kind of, feedback sessions and discussions. And I'm always there for that. Provided we don't have some freaking Zeta Mega Hulk, She-Hulk attorney at law or Omicron variant or something, I probably would go again.
That has to be the
attorney
name of
at
the next
law.
variant.
It went till it had time to go to law school.
Yeah. It's studying up. It's like, how do I do this better.
how long is law school? Is that
It's really
5
troubling.
years or something? Or 3 years? How long is law school? I don't know. I'm a dev. I don't know.
Would you go back, Mike, if it was the same event next year?
I would probably, for all the reasons Wen was just saying. It was so nice to see everybody. It was such a great timing for me, as I mentioned, during the pre-show.
Yeah.
It's really fun, but it was so different and not really worth like the normal stress of IO or the challenges of that usually happen.
It is really
great for
stressful.
me.
Yeah. Right now, it is a little bit. This is the most I've kind of been stressed out afterwards, and for like kind of the reasons that Mike said. I did hear that a few people did test positive at the tent and had to be turned away. So it's not like it's, I'm nervous right now, and we're gonna be testing quite a bit for the next couple of weeks. So yeah, it's definitely on my mind, but I don't want to regret going because I don't. I got to see a lot of people that I didn't get to see, and we got to do hopefully some good Android networking feedback and kind of work. So
there's a lot of value to that. Even if Google, but I mean, at the same time, it is a developer conference, and the history of the conference has been that as developers, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the key pieces of value is going there where Google is holding all of these events that come, the meeting of the minds all in the same place, have the same kind of reasons for being there. So, there's that camaraderie that's built around this kind of shared experience, the shared learning educational experience put on by the people who are responsible for the thing that is your livelihood, and a lot of that was just kind of like not there for this time. It seems like it was but a sliver of the entire, piece of the pie. And
so for sure, and I know we're trying to move off of this, but I will, there was basically no press there. And I will mention one of my fondest experiences at I.O. was talking to you and Ron Amadio at one of the After I.O. events. Jason, I very fondly remember the three of us having a really fun conversation, kind of like we might do here on the podcast.
Totally.
And those are the memories and the things that I really, the things I get energy from. And none of those things were really available this year. There was a super small amount of Android devs. So it's great to see them. And those are, the Android fam I love to see, but it just didn't have the same energy as a real I.O.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like it was over before it started, sort of thing.
Oh, yes.
Also, it's like you blink and wait a minute, what? Oh, so it was just the keynotes? Okay. All right. Well, anyways, things were announced during this event. People were seen by maybe not in the same numbers that y'all were used to, in times past, but lots of things were announced. Actually, there were quite a few announcements. So we're going to dive into those. I hope you're ready, Burke. It's time for the news.
I'm not ready.
I'm not ready, but it's time.
I was,
Yeah, you were sleeping.
No, it would just be recycled Android news.
You were
something about
at
goats
your own Google
and
I/O in your mind.
and betas.
Yeah, something like
Listen, it has been 578 episodes, Burke. If you're not in the mood to do the news, you get in the mood.
that. Yeah. Pick yourself up by your bootstraps.
We do every week. We do this, man. We show up.
oh dear.
Okay.
let's do
someone
it.
needs to relieve Burke of his duties. He's falling asleep back there. All right. I don't know that this is necessarily the top because I feel like with everything around Google I/O, Android 13 was really talked about very little. There wasn't a whole lot discussed about Android. I mean, Samir Samat, friend of the show, was up on stage kind of talking about it and kind of set out, part of the stuff. But I mean, this is the world that we live in where these betas are revealed to everyone, weeks to months prior to Google I/O. Google I/O used to be this like really big reveal moment for a lot of things that we expect. And now we already have access to the developer preview and the beta. So the main news around Android 13 is that the second beta is released. You can get it on a number of phones, including Pixels, of course. It's a very incremental release, but it does contain, from my understanding anyways, the foundational elements behind predictive back gesture, which we have talked about a little bit on the show. That's kind of the hard work of Michel Ramon in Discovery. Well, now, here it is. Apparently it's in version or beta 2. But when you had noted this as one of the interesting kind of dev related stuff, pieces of news from the event. What do you know about this new feature?
Yeah, so I think this is particularly interesting just because it's kind of giving a hint to how the Android team is looking to kind of move the platform forward and clean things up as we're approaching, like, as we're past like a decade-old platform. So I know, like, we talked about this like 2 weeks ago, and I said, well, there's no way that machine learning is just going to magically fix devs' navigation without breaking it. And that's actually 100% true, but you're going to have to fix it. So basically what we do know now is that predictive back navigation is towards helping the operating system let users know where they're going. So the example that you'll see often is just the case where you hit back in an app and it takes you to home.
Yeah.
And so what this hopefully will do is kind of, as you're dragging backwards, kind of slowly reveal the home screen to you. But that's not it. That's not the only thing, rather. And what's actually going to happen is all of us are going to have to fix our back navigation. So I didn't realize this, but there was an API, a new version of the back navigation API released in 2019. Maybe, Mike, you knew about this already. We've been kind of sleeping on our back navigation for years, so I didn't realize this. But basically, if you have not migrated, whatever code you have, which basically is a customization of the back parse, which for devs, devs out there, even if you're using fragments and backstack, which are pretty basic building blocks, depending on, your mileage might vary, you will need to handle the new kind of upgrade either to the new Android X APIs or to the new API, which will help with this new predictive gesture. And I think it's interesting because in 13, it's on and you can test your app for compatibility with this new predictive back navigation. By 14, if you haven't fixed it, your back navigation is going to be broken. And I think this is just a really interesting way. And I think when we were at the fireside chat, I think Dan Sandler, who's on the Android team, noted that this is kind of this is going to be their approach to really fixing things that are kind of ingrained like this and are hard to fix and have years of tech debt behind them, is that, hey, here's a new API. To be fair, they did release the building blocks for this about 3 years ago. I slept on it, but it's out there. And they'll basically, when they're kind of getting ready to switch us off and kind of encouraging those of us that want to keep their apps updated to not break functionality, you get a release to play around with it and a release to basically fix it and migrate to the new stuff. And then by the next release, it's going to be broken. It'll be on by default and it's be broken. So I think this is really interesting because there's been other things in the past where I feel like that's also been the case. I know, but I thought that, for sure, there's machine learning can't fix this, which is true. So devs got to fix it. But I do think that in general, this is a good path to improve back navigation. I don't know, Mike, what did you think about it? And what did you think about predictive back navigation?
I think that it's just something we're going to have to deal with, just like all the different changes that
yeah,
each and every year.
Yeah, it's just going to be one more thing. I think there's enough time, and basically the implementation seems easy enough, so it'll be okay.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting. Busy. Yeah, they keep us busy, but it's just.
And I think you're right about what you're saying, that this is kind of a way that they're starting to handle things and a way that they're moving forward with like tech debt, because the back functionality has always been kind of confusing in Android, whether it exits the app or takes you back.
Yeah,
it's always been kind of confusing. So they're trying to fix it.
Big time. Yeah, but that's a couple of versions to make that change. I mean, it is. This isn't like a feature that some apps tap into and some apps don't. This is a feature that every app, to some degree, has some sort of integration with. The back button just is a foundational piece of Android and navigation. So it's something that all developers will have to pay attention to, as opposed to, I can't remember, was it scoped storage was the thing a few years ago where it was introduced and then it pissed a bunch of developers off, and so they kind of like retracted that, and then the next version they were like, all right, we've given you plenty of time, now we're actually committing to it, you got to make the changes. But that isn't necessarily a feature that touches every single app that that is created by a developer. The back button, like, I don't think there is an app that doesn't touch that to some degree, you know what I mean? So everybody's gonna have to make changes there.
For sure. And I think it's just a good lesson on, like, if you're a developer, you got to pay attention. Otherwise your app might be broke.
Yeah, no kidding.
But this is a little bit aggressive, but I also like, just like we were talking about a while ago about them just being very more stringent on targeting like within like the latest version. This is just them being more aggressive about people cleaning up their app. So there you go.
Yeah.
Get on the ball.
I was going to say, Google is being so aggressive about it. They're going to hide your app if you're not developing to the latest IPs.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah,
it won't even get
exactly.
listed in the Play Store.
More and more, incentive for developers to keep their apps updated, whether they are excited about that or not. It's just kind of the way that it is, and for users, that's a really great thing. Ultimately,
Yes.
Yeah.
Flo, you got the next one. This top section is kind of like news as relates to like Android versions and different surfaces and stuff. So you got Android Auto.
So I've got the one that gives me the most headache, which is Android Auto.
Oh, yay.
Perfect.
Yay.
This is not because of developers out there. I mean, I guess it is a little bit because of Google. This strategy it's getting better. It's getting more pointed. So what's happening is you can expect a revised interface to hit your Android Auto in-dash infotainment system coming soon. What's really cool about this one is that it includes a split screen mode. So that's going to be adaptable to different screen sizes. And This is particularly important because in addition to the fragmentation we've already experienced as Android users of the phone, there's now fragmentation of screen sizes in cars, especially like manufacturers. There is no one set size as you see in this animated image. My Subaru has like an 11-inch tablet situation going on with only half the screen that's devoted to Android Auto. And so that half of the screen is going to use this split screen mode so that you can get more information into, whatever is allotted there for you by your car, by the OEM, your car manufacturer. So it's going to be good for usability. Supposedly, again, I haven't used it, and I'm the end-all be-all of user testing. So
yes, Google relies on only your feedback. It's true. So
only my feedback. I did ask because I had a meeting with Google about this, and I did ask about the phone app. And it being deprecated.
And like, just get over it.
I didn't get a lot. I didn't get a lot, just that the assistant mode is going to get better.
Okay.
I'm still waiting. Currently, I have no idea where I'm driving ever in my actual car. So,
do you have Android? But you have Android Auto as a...
That's in the family car, Jason. That's not my car.
Oh, okay.
Not my car. It's the family car, Jason.
Now I understand. Now I get it.
Jason, what it's like. You have your own car with, you have to have your own mood. Anyway,
your own layout.
more assistant integration coming to Android Auto, which is always good. We're talking about things like paying wirelessly for parking, and that's just going to become more commonplace in the next couple of years. The infrastructure for that is really small right now, but it's happening, especially in major metro areas. Also, another big thing was there's more video streaming coming. So Epix and Tubi, which are both free streaming services.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. One thing to note about this distinction is that, if I recall correctly, this is coming to Android Automotive OS, which is the embedded software inside cars. That's kind of a different product pipeline than what we're talking about with Android Auto. I think they will probably make this available at some point to just regular Android Auto users. But my understanding is that this video streaming capability, what's happening here is all to kind of like set a base for the future cars that are going to have Android Automotive pulsating through them. Just
powering
think of
them.
another description.
Yeah.
So look forward to this new UI this summer. Okay. I'm looking forward to it. The biggest thing to know about it, because of that split screen mode, you're now going to have navigation and media controls on the same screen, which is very important because it means you're going to tap at the screen a little bit less while you're behind the wheel, just to be able to get through the different options.
So with an Android Auto interface, like if you have the maps up, that normally there's no like music controls whatsoever showing there. You have to. God, that sucks.
It's in a separate. You have to tap into the app, which is like in this little launcher dock area that they added. It's a lot better than the previous iterations, but it would just make more sense to have it all there. The way that like the Subaru stock OS that I have in the family car. I mean, the way that
everybody uses these things, I'm sure, a little bit differently, but I'd say the predominant majority of people are probably listening to something and, you know, probably have use for the maps. I mean, not everybody uses maps to go everywhere, but those two things running concurrently seems like something that I imagine a large percentage of people want at the same time. Yeah, exactly. Those two things, pretty
traffic
standard.
And media controls. And I just want to add my biggest pet peeve right now, since I have the conch, is that this assistant driving mode on the phone doesn't easily let you go and change media apps. So I can't like jump into a podcast. I can only control Spotify. I cannot go into Pocket Casts. Don't use Spotify for podcasts. Stop getting me to use Spotify for podcasts.
Is the assistant driving mode the thing that appears if I launch Maps and navigate somewhere and then it's down in the bottom corner, or is it down in the bottom like third of the screen?
Yeah. Or what you do is you go into your car like me, you wait for the Rove Bolt to turn on, and then you go, okay, G, turn on driving mode. And then it officially brings up like the full screen. Otherwise, you're just in the regular phone mode. And everything's a lot smaller, which is harder for tapping.
Why?
I will say,
very precise and thorough.
I will say that recently, I this past weekend, I drove up to Vermont to go to a wedding. So I was in the car for 6 hours, and I was like, all right, well, I'm using Android Auto. Let's do it. And because you know I'm plugging in via USB cable, I forgot to bring my AA wireless, but it would have killed my battery. But because I'm on a Subaru where the head unit allows you to choose Android Auto as an app, switching between the radio and the maps and Android Auto was just a nightmare. Like having to like leave Android Auto to go to Sirius XM, change the station, then go back to.
Oh my god! I get so angry every time This is why I don't drive. I don't like driving the Subaru, even though it has Android Auto in it, because it's just like.
Because it's a bolt-on, you know, like it's not totally integrated. You know, when we switched over to listening to Pocket Cast, it was fine because it was all, if you're contained in the Android Auto experience, then that's fine. But so
when you have to go out of it,
it'd be a lot cooler if there was a way to bridge to control the car's radio system from Android Auto. If there was a way to go out, I don't know. So
like a common language that
I don't know, but going back to the stuff that they announced at I/O, I was fascinated by that video of like the display in the car that changes shape. That's pretty cool. I want that car.
It just magically turns from landscape to portrait.
Narrow.
Sign me up for that. Coming to BMWs in 2027.
What display do you want? Because this display can be all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Just press
it's a rollable in every direction. Yeah.
But it really is like, it really does speak though to this strategy they're doing with Android Auto is very similar to what they were doing with Android on phones. With regards to like so many different screen sizes now. You know, some OEMs want to have it like Subaru, it works on top of their OS. Others like Volvo, I think, has it fully integrated in the car. Like just when you turn the car on, it's made of Android. So this future is a little weird, and I really am concerned about it, but I've said it before and many times again about why. So
it keeps getting just a little bit better each time, just a little bit better.
Not on the phone. I mean, not on the app.
The app, basically doesn't exist anymore.
All right, so the last one here.
Yep.
So we touched on all this sort of stuff. We touched on Android Auto. Of course, we need to touch on Google TV. As at I/O, they announced that Google TV's Android 13 beta is out as well. And the exciting news coming out of this is that picture-in-picture in Android TV and Google TV, which is pretty exciting. Devs can use the Keep Clear API to avoid any inconvenient overlays in the process. And also, they've got improved APIs in the Audio Manager for handoff between devices. HDMI state changes can automatically pause playback when HDMI presence is changed, and keyboard layouts throughout the new input device API. So Google TV gets a little more mature with Android 13, which is exciting.
Flo, I have to say that I appreciated in your article your kind of your memory of the 90s, of the magic of technology was picture-in-picture mode in TVs, because I do remember that and going, oh, I want that, because I don't know why, but apparently I need to watch two things on the same screen at the same time. And now it's finally coming to Google TV.
You just like walk through Costco and all the TVs, they would all have picture-in-picture, and I would just be like, wow, you can watch the Olympics and soap operas at the same time.
And how often have you done that, really?
Actually, I do picture-in-picture every single day. I watch it like on my phone. I watch Pluto TV in a little window, and then I do my Animal Crossing rounds.
Oh, okay.
I do the same thing. I play my mobile game.
See?
But that's a different use case than on the TV, actually. So I also love, like on my tablet, having picture-in-picture, but you're talking about something different. You're not talking about
okay, but Mike, what I'm trying to say is that my love for picture-in-picture started at a very young age. I see. And now that it is just available to me in Android,
it's evolved over time, and now picture-in-picture is something different. But I've never, well, probably not never. Probably back in the days that I actually watched football, I would imagine I probably did a picture-in-picture of two games at the same time. That would be useful, I suppose. But
sports is a good use case for that. Obviously, not watching two soap operas or
right. That just always seems confusing.
If you got to get through a lot of TV quickly,
that.
It could be a good option. It could be a good option there, but yeah.
I mean, one of the sources would have to be a subtitle, right? Because you can't listen to them both at the same time.
Yeah.
No, there's enough emotion there, Jason. You can just feel what they're feeling. You don't need words.
Oh, you're right.
That's what acting is.
It's acting. You're so right. You don't need to actually hear their words. I can see the pain.
Just watch them throw plates at each other. That's the whole point of reality.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, good. All right. So getting picture-in-picture. And then just real quick before we move on, just because there were more stories than we could even really dive into, but definitely a theme that we'll be talking about in the app section. Google heavily leaning into AI, artificial intelligence, and everything. A couple of, one notable thing, they spent a good portion of time focused on the inclusivity of their apps, and specifically about this scale, this skin tone scale, which I realize I didn't write down the name of it, but the monk, there we go, the monk scale, how they're integrating that into the technology that they're producing. Kind of started with the Pixel 6 and the camera there, and now they're broadening it out to other apps and services that Google's doing. So that's a really great use of AI, of course. Really great stuff there. And then they also mentioned, and this has nothing to do with AI, but they mentioned a new kind of section that you can go into tied to your Google account to really get a sense. It's called Results About You, and it's just more insight into kind of ads and who Google knows you to be and how that's impacting your experience and everything. Doing more on the more effort on the front of informing users about like what your data is, what data you're sharing about yourself, who Google sees you to be, and giving you controls to be able to kind of wind that back or shave it down. And that's the wrong screen.
Or better have Google better target you.
Yeah, well, that's another way to look at it.
Google, this is exactly how I want to be. I mean, honestly, this is how I want to be targeted. Stop serving me any of this like weird, fringy thing that keeps popping up on YouTube. Like, if I can just make that stop happening to me, here's everything you need to know about me.
Fringy or cringy? Or both? Probably
both.
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah.
No cringe on the fringe. Or fringy cringe.
Cringe
that's some cringy
fringe. Is
cringe.
Fringe is cringe.
Fringe is cringe. Not always, though. Sometimes fringe is... I can't think of another word that rhymes with
like on a jacket?
No,
like on a jacket?
No. Fringe on a jacket is
definitely.
fine.
No.
But fringy ideology is not.
Yeah, well, that's true. That can be the case. We can go down a rabbit hole on that, but we're not going to.
We're not.
We're going to take a break and thank the sponsor. we're going to think about a little coffee before we move on with the rest of this episode of All About Android. This episode is brought to you by Trade Coffee. And Trade Coffee is awesome. So this is, we're firmly in this world of there is a subscription service for everything. And if you are a fan of something, there's probably a subscription service for it. But I'll tell you what, as far as fans go, coffee might be one of the categories that has the most fans. I mean, people are passionate about their coffee. And, there's something to be said for getting variety with your coffee. It's easy to get locked into the same coffee that you're drinking time after time because you know it's good, but that doesn't mean that there isn't just a whole bunch of other really great options out there that maybe you're not finding at your grocery store, right? Because your grocery store only sources a handful of options. I know this is the way it is with the stores that I go to here. So that's what Trade Coffee is all about. They make it really easy for you actually go to their website and you take this quiz and the quiz kind of, asks you certain questions about your coffee preferences. And out of that comes this like stream of recommendations, and you can kind of hop on board and let Trade Coffee kind of determine what new coffee you're going to be drinking. I actually have a package here with me from Trade Coffee. And what's kind of cool about this is that this is you can go ahead and throw this in the green bin, right? It's compostable. This packaging is compostable. You have to remove the label, but they make it so that if you cut away the label, the rest of it just goes right in compost. So what they're shipping you isn't something that's going to end up in a landfill or anything. So that's kind of like first and foremost. So I'm going to go ahead and open this to see what we got in here. So this is Atomic Coffee Roasters. This is a black velvet from Honduras and Guatemala. Those are the regions. Varietal bourbon, Catamore. It's fully washed. This is a dark roast. Kind of gives you some flavor notes. It's just, how cool is it to like get home one day and find a new package from Trade Coffee hanging out for you? So tomorrow when you drink coffee, when you grind down the beans, it's going to be a new flavor experience. And it's all based around the answers that you gave during the quiz. So they make it really, really simple and a whole lot of fun. Definitely worth checking out. 450 different kinds of coffees. They're all live. They're ready to ship every single day. There might not be for you one perfect coffee, but there is a perfect coffee to be found. You might not have found it yet. You're going to find it with Trade Coffee. They have their human-powered algorithm that's going to help you find it as well. And they're introducing you to a lot of independent roasters as well. So you're not just, like I said, locked into the local varieties. You're shopping from around the world, essentially. 60 of the country's best craft roasters, small businesses who are actually paying farmers fair prices to sustainably source the greatest beans from around the world. And it's just, and I also have to say, I just bought my wife for her birthday, bought her an espresso, what is it? The Barista Plus, or I can't remember the maker of it. But anyways, I think we've got one kind of out in the kitchen here at Twit. And so we got this new machine to make espresso, to make lattes and everything. And then Trade Coffee comes along. It's like the perfect pairing. Now we're getting all of these really great coffee beans, and we're excited to like test them out with this new machine and everything. It came along at just the right time. Trade delivers a bag of freshly roasted coffee. You can get it as whole beans or ground, however you choose to brew it at home. They guarantee you're going to love your first order, or they will replace it for free. And Trade's delivered over 5 million bags of fresh coffee, more than 750,000 positive reviews. You're going to love it. I tell you, if you love coffee, this is the way to go. Right now, Trade is offering new subscribers a total of $30 off your first order, plus free shipping when you go to drinktrade.com/AAA. That right there, that's more than 40 cups of coffee for free. Not bad. Get started by taking their quiz. The quiz that I just told you about. Go to drinktrade.com/AAA and let Trade find you a coffee you're going to love. That's drinktrade.com/AAA and you'll get that $30 off. And I just want to, what I want to do is I want to open it just so that I have the smell of coffee in here, but I also don't want to kind of start the what is it? The aging process, or I don't know what it is when you open coffee and it gets less fresh.
Yeah, don't
Oxidization.
Oxidization.
keep the
thank you.
freshness.
Yeah, but I want to smell this coffee. I want that aroma around the table to wake me up. There you go. drinktrade.com/AAA, $30 off. All right. We have a lot more show coming up in store ahead for you. Right now, we're going to get into some hardware. So let's do it. Woo! So I divided this into 3 different disparate sections. This first section that Flo's going to do are devices coming soon. And then we will get to devices coming later, and then devices coming much, much later. So
The ghost of devices, past, present, and future.
yes, right.
Or present, future, and more future. Future.
Exactly. All right, Flo, you got the first
My Guinness. There was a lot of hardware for this being a developer conference.
Totally.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing because obviously, A, people want to know what's coming down the pipeline. B, developers need to know what's coming down the pipeline, right? To develop to that. So we know that there's a lot of new Pixel hardware coming. Yes, we do. The first is the Pixel 6a. That's the mid-range smartphone that we've been waiting for. But guess what? We have to wait a little bit longer.
Oh, man.
Pre-orders for that are not starting until July 21st. Again, we're still in May, so there's a little bit of time to wait. And then it won't be on sale until July 28th, and that will be $450 for this phone. Already,
so we got to
it's
wait
like
2 months?
Yeah. Is it 2 months? Thank you for doing the math. Yeah,
it's a little more than 2 months.
it's about 2 months.
Yeah, about 2 months.
Yep.
Yeah.
Gone are the days when Google announced something and says, and it's available right now. Or is that just a memory?
Supply chain.
Yeah.
So I got to complain for a little bit.
All right.
Oh, here we go.
Okay.
Let's wind Mike up.
It's ridiculous to me that they wouldn't just open the pre-orders now, even if the delivery's going to be in the future.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
It just seems really weird. They kept like talking about this cool stuff that they have, and then saying pre-orders 2 months from now. It's like no excitement, and it just deflated like everything.
Yeah, it loses the lightning, right? It loses the energy there a little bit when you're like, oh, I mean, because what holds a company back from just opening pre-orders now? Like, why not? Because
exactly. I don't get
understand.
Supply chain.
Well, I was gonna say supply chain, and I would guess also the carriers. Like I gotta imagine whenever, especially with Verizon and things like that, like it's the combination of supply chain getting it into all those stores and shipping and all that sort of stuff. I think the two things that are going on, the confluence of it's going to take 2 months before it becomes available. That's my guess.
So when you say supply chain, it's if you've got 2 months of pre-orders, that's 2 months of this building mound of phones that need to deliver on day one, and they might not be able to do that. Is that the worry there? I just kind of assumed I think
that it's actually it's going to take time to actually get the inventory into the carrier stores.
Okay, that I understand.
And they don't necessarily, and they don't want to start selling it from the Google store earlier than that because then they'll undercut their partners.
Oh, yeah,
right.
Yeah, very well could be the case.
Yeah, see,
we're guessing, of course.
Ronzo's got the angle, but the other reason why they announced it is because they are trying to build up a little bit of hype for what they are doing with the hardware lineup, and so we're gonna notice the theme as we all start kind of like talking about what was revealed.
Yeah.
So the big thing about the 6A is that it has the same tensor chip as the regular 6.
Good.
Ding, ding, ding. Sounds just like what Apple just did with the iPhone 13 and the Apple iPhone SE. Very much similar thing. Also, Samsung's doing that with its A series lineup. So there's going to be a lot of competition between these three, in my mind, for people's hands, so to speak, because they're going at the $400 price point, and then they're going at the $800 plus with their flagships. Yeah. So they figured, why not just announce it going forward? A couple just little specs on the 6A that we know so far. 4,400, I think it's 450 milliamp battery, or is it 405?
405.
I don't know.
It's a Yeah, I could have that wrong.
I don't remember off the top of my head. I'm sorry right now, but there is 6 gigs of memory, which is something to keep in store. I think it's only a 90 hertz refresh rate. It's not the full 120 that you would get on like the Galaxy A53. That's like the big thing about that. That particular phone. Only 128 gigs of storage. So already it's a very like limited lineup that you're getting here. No more headphone jack. So I knew quite a few people who reached out to me and were like, I need to go buy my 5A. It's the last of the headphone jacks that I can get. So yeah. That's going to be a bummer, but clearly like Google's using the A series to go after those other two that, you know, but it's just, it feels weird to me that they're doing a July launch for it because you're completely missing the window that Samsung and Apple have right now. And I understand that Apple is a different operating system, but it doesn't matter to sales numbers. Somebody will switch between Android and iOS if what they're really concerned about is money and value. So something to keep in mind there.
I mean, you know, again, the missed window or the delayed window, you know, probably goes back to the whole supply chains. That's what we blame for all this stuff lately, you know.
And we know how tight Apple and Samsung are in their own supply chains, right? So it's going to be an interesting story going forward. Yeah. Beyond phones, we also have the Pixel Buds Pro to look forward to. These are also very exciting. Also, you have to wait until July 21st for the pre-order, July 28th for the release. $200 for this set of active noise cancellation enabled headphones. It's the first of Google's buds to have ANC, which is pretty exciting. There's going to be a custom audio processor on the earbuds, a 6-core audio chip that will help, you know, do all of that magic that goes on. And that magic includes the AI sound shaping and spatial audio support, which is another like big thing that is happening in the earbud world. 4 colors, assuming they're going to match all the new Pixels that are coming out.
Probably.
Sorry to tease Win, but you know, it's happening.
Yep. All right.
It's happening.
So Pixel Buds finally gets its pro line or its pro level with that, you know, noise cancellation, which is kind of table stakes for premium in-ear buds, you know, wireless earbuds at this point. Cool. Yeah, I'd be curious to check them out. I'm less excited about these than a lot of the other announcements that they made, but it makes sense that they'd have that. But again, why not have those pre-orders open now? Let people start getting really excited and dropping down their intentions now. You know, I don't understand why you don't.
Carriers, man. That's my guess.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably right. It's just a bummer.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. When you have the devices coming later section, which is very exciting.
I am your ghost of devices coming later. Not too much later, but a little bit later.
A little bit later.
A little bit later. And to start off, maybe unsurprisingly, or just confirming all of the leaks and renders and photos that we've had for the past several months, the Pixel Watch is real. And it is coming later this year. Yes, that was very exciting to see. And it looks just like, you know, the ones left in restaurants and the renders we've seen. We've got a nice round phone there, a little bit of heft to it. There's still not a lot that we know about it in particular. We do know, and it was noted in the keynote, there will be some deep integrations with Fitbit. So leaning into the health and wellness, you know, sector of smartwatches and wearables. Still not, what does that mean? It probably will have heart rate monitoring, sleep tracking, you know, fitness activity tracking, but you know, I'm kind of curious, and I know, Phil, you noted in your article too, like where the balance will be between Google Fit and Fitbit. Yeah. Like it's kind of interesting to me, like how the two will interplay. I mean, of course, Google owns Fitbit now, but there's still two, like just like many other Google things, they have different products doing the same thing. So how do we bring all these things together into a consistent experience? Will be interesting to see. Of course, we'll probably be running the new hybrid WearOS 3 developed with Samsung, and we'll have multiple colorways. And I actually didn't pick up on this at all, but it has custom silicon. So yet another Pixel device that Google is rolling with their own custom silicon. So kind of filling out the ecosystem, not just with, you know, different devices and different form factors, but with their own silicon. Though, again, we have no idea what that looks like just yet. So we'll have to wait a little bit longer to see. And we might get a few more details when we actually get to know what the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro are, because those were also teased. It is going to be I think I was learn more in July, but the Pixel 7 and Pixel 7 Pro look not too different than the Pixel 6 and 6 Pro, keeping that lovely camera bar, but this time it's getting thinned out and metallicized rather than having a glass plastic kind of thicker camera bar. It's getting kind of turned into a nice metal that kind of integrates nicely with the metal sides. The colorways are pretty interesting because I think in the last few years we've had some pretty fun colors, at least a lot of varied colors. They're kind of looking a little more subdued than last year, but what I really like about the colors is that it's not just the back that's going to have some color to it, but also the metal frame that includes the camera bar and also the sides of the phone will also have some variation in color. So you kind of get combos rather than individual colors, which is going to be really nice. And again, we don't know too much more about it yet. This is just a vague teasing, but we will know that, again, custom silicon, and this will have the next generation Tensor chip. So Pixel 7, 7 Pro, and your Pixel Watch is to come more later coming a little sooner rather than later in the year.
But yeah, probably the fall event.
This is going back, and Mike, you can probably you probably attest to this in terms of the I don't want to say downer or bummer that I/O was, but Google just keeps taking the wind out of our sails of speculation, right? It was neat to see. It was neat to see the Pixel 7, but I feel so much stolen, the anticipation and the speculation. It's just it's so anticlimactic now. It's just, I don't know. It's a weird strategy. I get it, but I also miss the, there's a leak and they left it in a bar and all this sort of stuff. They're getting so ahead of that nonsense now.
Yeah.
I don't want this glimpse. I don't want to see what the Pixel 7 looks like till it's announced. Where's the magic?
Now we're going to see these photos of the Pixel 7 for the next 4 months. Whereas, if this hadn't happened, who knows what we would see? The blurry leaked from the random dark room shot, would be the kind of hero image on the top of articles. And now instead we get Google's very specific, very, particular and chosen and clear and everything shots to promote the phone. But I don't know. Are we without too much surprise and joy, Mike? What do you think? Would you prefer to have more surprise?
I would prefer to have more surprise. The one thing I will say that surprised me, or that I really liked about the new phones, in particular the 6A, was the design aesthetic they're going for and the industrial design of the devices. They're really distinctive, and I think they're really nice looking. So
yeah.
Especially the 6A, actually. It has a little bit of a different aesthetic even than the 7. But they all look very nice and very distinctive. You can see them. I notice people using, I'm an Android. Everybody in this room is an Android aficionado and notices these things. But I definitely notice when people are using the Pixel 6 now, and it's really distinctive.
Yeah. Yeah, there aren't other phones that look like it out in the wild. You definitely know when you see a Pixel 6 out there. And with the 7,
that 6A right there is beautiful.
Yeah.
That they would,
although with the 6A, the camera system's way different, right? So it's a lot shallower. You can definitely tell that thing does not protrude nearly as much as it does on the 6 and 6 Pro. Not not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just a testament to the fact that with the A series, you are getting a step down. I think what's interesting to me is this kind of new world of the processor. Talking about Pixel phones, the processor is no longer the step down thing. It's other things, it's the camera or whatever. But the processor, hey, you're getting the same banging processor on both, the premium and the mid-range device. And so that's kind of out of the running. But the cameras, I think you probably end up seeing a big step downwards on the A series than what we're used to on the
I will say I was delighted that they did announce a 6A because my sister needs a new phone and this will be it. So,
there you go.
And she doesn't watch this, so she doesn't know it. But I already talked to my brother-in-law about getting it for her. So
nice. She just has to wait 2 months.
She's got to wait 2 months and pay $50 more because she's on Verizon, which is stupid.
Oh yeah, that is stupid.
Carriers.
Yeah.
MM wave or whatever that nonsense
Momo
is. Right?
wave.
Yeah.
Wave.
It is pretty great when you get it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah. But how
not
often
gonna
do you
lie.
get it?
Is it though, Flo? Is it?
Oh, please.
I just want to.
Is it worth $50?
By the way, I just want to quickly make a little clarification on the Pixel Watch chip, because I realized it was my article used. The clarification is that we do not know if Google is making the chip. That's the only clarification I wanted to offer. Yes.
So custom silicon.
I
but
realized
not
something
sure.
was teased, but I just wanted to clarify.
And in fact, I was just looking this up, and even today, and I missed this before the show, but even in the last 24 hours, there are some people writing about the possibility that this is an Exynos chip from 2018 or something like that. So custom, but maybe not new custom. But that would suck.
It falls in line with the understanding that this would be something built with Samsung.
Yeah.
So because that was the other thing that was really confusing, and again, I just want to clarify on this because we didn't get like full news on this. Some of these things came out, during the keynote as well, and one of the things is it was a little confusing as to why Samsung was a part of this announcement, because you would think Pixel Watch, that means this is just Google doing its own thing. So
yeah,
it's another wait and see. We're not supposed to really expect this until October. So
one thing about
until then.
Sorry. One thing about Samsung and Google, and I was just looking for it, and I couldn't find it necessarily. I thought that they announced a new health platform in accordance with the watch, where
they did.
And that could be important, actually.
Yeah, it's a new health API, which I briefly looked over last week. Sorry, Mike. I meant to be like,
no,
yes,
you know more than I do.
And then I thought you were going to say more, so that's why I stopped.
No, I was searching. I was searching for it. I can't find it, but you know more than me.
Yeah, I put it in a slideshow on Gizmodo. So if you really need to go look it up, you can go look it up in the Google I/O recap things you might have missed at gizmodo.com. But it's a health connection API, and it's supposed to help cut down. Remember, a long time ago, we did a show where we talked about what was the app, Jason? Remember the app that you needed, the Health Sync? Yep, Health Sync.
Oh, to sync between Google Fit and Samsung
Health.
Yeah. I can't remember
So this
the name
is basically
of the app,
gonna bridge that. It's gonna give access to make it just so Google Fit will work with, my understanding, is any of the compatible Android watches. So good things are coming to everybody.
Good things to those who wait. One question before we move on, and Ron, you've got some exciting stuff to talk about here in a second. So going back to the Pixel Watch one last time, and this integration with Fitbit, and like some of the best features of Fitbit coming to WearOS. What does that mean? Because I've never had a Fitbit, so I don't actually know what Fitbit does that WearOS doesn't already do. Like, they both track fitness. But how is Fitbit doing it differently? Is it because it's a better battery experience? Is Fitbit actually tracking something in health that WearOS just simply can't track? Like, what does that sharing of things mean that effectively makes the WearOS experience better because it's getting it from Fitbit? I still don't know the answer to that. And maybe you guys don't either. This could be a question for an email. If somebody out there knows.
This is a question. Honestly, Jason, this is a question for a fitness wearables expert. And I mean this sincerely, because I realized, coming into the Android beat, I thought I knew everything I did about wearables, but there is a whole little subsection that if you are not a person using it daily, it's hard to completely understand.
Yeah.
Like how that information is shared and, what kind of the nuances are.
Yeah.
So if you
maybe someone out there has some good guesses. No, yeah. And I mean, it's just a question that I still have yet to understand. I haven't seen anyone really tackle it, or I hear what everybody says, which is, yay, Fitbit, coming to WearOS. And somebody in the chat room just said Fitbit is like having a kicker box. They were just the best early. And maybe that's it. Maybe Fitbit was just really good early on and they all kind of do. But then if that's the case, then what is the value? I don't know. But I'm hopeful, but I still don't really understand like how that.
Well, you don't want to
improves the experience.
abandon all the people who have been in this ecosystem for like 10 years and
for
have
certain.
all that, running data, people who have just like, had their whole health lives around that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that's important though, as someone who is on a non-smart wearable, that integration is important. And like, I've mentioned before that I'm on a totally different non-brand.
Right.
And what is important to me is being able to pull that data into other things. Like I'm actually on Strava, even though I don't really run or cycle, but for like the social aspect, and then even pulling it into Google Fit and having like Withings and like, cause we have like the Withings scale. And I used to have like the Withings watch and things like that. And having my data like go to all these places so that, whether it's a social aspect or whether it's integrating it with Withings with my blood pressure, which I should be really taking more often, and, kind of the other things, that's really important. So maybe it is that. And I think that if you're on Fitbit, maybe that makes it easier to kind of start kind of exploring the device space outside of Fitbit, is being able to kind of feel like, oh, well, I can still have my Fitbit and have my Pixel Watch cake and eat it too. Wait a minute. That didn't work out, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that's a good point though, as someone who is a bit of a fitness nut and who likes my data. And I mean, that's the one thing that I will ding about this little tracker that I use, is the integrations are really minimal. Like it goes to Strava, which is basically it, as opposed to going to Google Fit, which is more central and can be kind of imported to other places. So that is a problem. And it might, maybe that's it. If you're a Fitbit user, please tell us. I'm actually really curious.
Yeah, I'm super curious about that too. AAA@twit.tv. And I'm sure we're going to hear from somebody about this. I'm very curious to know what y'all think Fitbit could actually bring to WearOS to make it better. So answer that. All right, Ron, you got the future looking crystal ball thing.
So not only is it future looking, but I kind of want to take a victory lap, and also extend 2022 as the year of the tablet, and we're gonna keep rolling with it and make 2023 the year of the tablet.
Great.
Because
this is a decade of the tablet.
At Google I/O, they did tease the Pixel tablet is coming in 2023, and it's going to be a premium device. For a premium device, what they showed looked awfully, let's say, simple.
Yeah.
It looked kind of like the screen removed from a Nest Hub. It looked very, kind of clean white bezel. It looks like if you just attached it from that base on a Nest Hub. But it lines up with previous investigative work by a friend of the show, Michelle Ramon, to that effect. So hey, Pixel tablet, an official, like, we've been hearing about how they're Android for wider devices and all this sort of stuff, and we've said on the show, right, Jason and Huynh, recently we've said that, like,
yes,
if we're really going to see tablet adoption, Google's got to get behind it with a device, and here they are with a device. So I was happy as a tablet user.
Well, it didn't work with Chrome OS, so.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
they're back to Android.
Did it flow though? Did it? But but it didn't stop there in the future. In fact, Google Glass it's back. If anybody had that on their bingo card, you could see it.
Yeah.
So they had frames that look like actual glasses frames, although they're still a little on the thick side, but that could be your style, so that's okay.
Yeah.
Real-time translation in front of the eyes, which, as we know, something I find amazing. The product was never mentioned to have a market date of any kind. Demos were simulated. And other announcements seem perfectly primed for a good for a device, like scene exploration in Google Lens, that can ID multiple products in the camera's view to display info about them. But ultimately, this glass looks to be very augmented reality-esque in that regard. So Google's trying to get back into the AR world with a new Google Glass someday. But it all seemed very hypothetical at this point.
Yeah.
So
They didn't leave
Did they
the
not
AR
even
world,
call
though.
it? Oh, sorry. Did they not even say the GLASS word? Because I think I was watching it and I was like live tweeting. I was like, oh my God, is Glass coming back? Because we had just like talked about like the 10th anniversary of Glass. So it seemed apropos.
I
think I was waiting.
I don't think they did.
I don't think they did.
No. And they were like, oh, it's a prototype. And I kind of all went, oh my gosh, Google Glass is back. And then the segment ended. I'm like,
Is it?
What is it?
But it's been back. It's been back in the enterprise.
Right.
Which is
That is
It never went away in the
reason
enterprise, right?
Because Google Glass as a product still exists. It is a certain thing that Google actively still sells for the enterprise. And this is different. This ties into, the energy of Apple, creating their own glasses and, the other companies that are doing the same.
This is Pixel Buds in a glasses frame.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is
But more
Meta.
than-
This is Meta's Ray-Bans. This is what this is. And it's going to be better because Google has already done the
Google.
work with all the translation. Just that translation alone.
Yes.
Oh
That's a
my
pretty cool
God.
feature.
Like that's holy crap. That's what I want out of life. Out of something.
So
like
we
this.
were talking a second ago about you could like look at stuff and maybe see information about it. I don't see a camera on those, and that's a super important nuance because the camera in the original Glass that was the big problem that everybody had such big issues with. I don't see a camera on that.
No.
So maybe not
and
the Ray-Bans. Just
that does limit functionality quite a bit if you're only
that's a really good point because when we think of AR systems right now, we do need, like when I think of like what we know about what Meta is creating around their AR solution, those headsets, they have out forward facing cameras. Not necessarily because I want to record a video of this person that I'm talking to, but because that's how the system collects information about your environment in order to overlay, in order to contextualize. The thing you were talking about, Ron, was a feature that search tool, they showed it off on a phone where I think it was like a selection of like chocolates or something, and they held up their phone and it had all this, augmented information pointing to all the things in real time and maybe their ratings and their prices and that sort of stuff. And so they didn't necessarily show off that feature as something that would be in the glasses, but you could kind of see how a feature like that would eventually end up in a glasses if it was created the right way. But these glasses would not be able to do that because they don't have a camera so how are they going to make contextualized, guesses on anything out in the real world?
audio.
Yeah, they're very, very limited, but sure, someday. I don't know when that is, but someday maybe they'll get there.
You got it, Jason.
Yeah.
Totally on the ball.
Yeah, so we'll see. But still interesting nonetheless that Google is still, working in that space. And I guess not that surprising. It seems like everybody is right now, whether they want to talk about it or not. Google's talking about it. So
it does seem to fit in with some of their other things. And I think maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but for example, one of the things, like along with, this is like the hardware manifestation of a lot of their AI work. And actually one of my favorite announcements was the model-based language as opposed to like direct translation, where generally translation works with pairing kind of similar sentence structures, for translation services, where Google's actually working on building specific models individual to a language, and so not having to rely on I think it was like a bilingual translation is what they're doing. I think this is really interesting in that for this to work, I think those kind of models would need to be better. Like just as an example, like as I'm learning Japanese, the kind of traditional way of like learning foreign language like we do here in America is to kind of, again, always pair it with like, here's the Spanish sentence and here's the English equivalent. And that doesn't really work. And like, I think traditionally languages like Japanese have had okay, but not great Google translation. So for this to actually work, they need to kind of be more sophisticated and to kind of get away from this functional, but a little bit rote kind of way of doing translation. So I really like this a lot because they're trying to kind of connect their consumer facing hardware side with all of these interesting developments that, like saying that they have like I forgot exactly what the term was, but the model based, languages, especially for ones that like indigenous languages and all things like that, which are very difficult to learn in a specific way. I like that a lot. And it's like, okay, that's a cool idea. And that's really awesome, say for maybe people of, native speakers of these languages, but to kind of put it in a consumer facing product is what really kind of, I think, sells it or makes you realize, hey, this is really interesting tech. We're doing a lot of cool stuff. And eventually it will find its way to you and to your family and to, hopefully be a way to improve your life. So I really like this a lot. It's like, hey, here's like a shiny toy, and here's all the kind of hard AI based neural networks that go behind the shiny toy. It all kind of fits, I think.
Yeah. Now, Google, just stay excited about these things, okay? Don't get distracted.
Please.
Don't stop being excited and forget. Just stay excited. Keep that excitement, okay? So we can actually see some of these things happen. All right. Coming up next, we've got some app news. That's up next.
This show is there's so much.
I know there is.
I know.
Well, this is the app block.
It's just never ending. I love it.
The app block, doesn't necessarily go on and on. We've had a lot to talk about so far. These are just kind of a couple of key services and apps that Google made some updates on during the show. For example, we were talking about the tablet just a few minutes ago. Google did say that it's updating more than 20 of its own apps to fit the large screen. And we've talked about this in the show many times. Hey, Google's got to kind of put their money where their mouth is. If they really want developers to focus and go all in on these larger screen experiences, they need to also do that with their apps. And apparently they are. Ron Amadio actually went through, Google had shared a photo of all these different UIs, just blanketed and dotted across the screen. Ron Amadio took the time to kind of go through and try and understand at least some of the apps that were shown there getting updates. And so it's all the ones that you expect, right? Like we don't have to name them because it's basically all Google apps that are relevant for the most part. But anyways, so it looks like Google is actually going to follow through and do the work that is required to make their apps tablet friendly. I hope that they continue to keep them optimized because there must have been a time when tablets 1.0, time happened where Google made updates to their apps to make them more tablet friendly. And then at some point they probably stopped because tablets became less of a thing. They were less inclined internally to make those updates and to really focus on tablet optimization. Do we believe that Google is going to make that commitment for good going forward now? Like, is this time different than it was before as far as that's concerned? What do y'all think?
I mean, they better. And so
better.
This is like back to the dev thing where I think it's been really interesting that they're doing this now. So something that, and like maybe like Mike, if you want to chime in on this, like I think for me at work throughout this entire career as an Android dev, a lot of times when we're say designing something or going through and kind of refining an interaction, we use Google Apps as a reference. Like that's just how it is. Especially in Android dev world, it's very often to find designers that don't actually have a lot of experience with Android. They more have experience with other platforms. And so a lot of times, in order to kind of find a comparable experience, an analog, you look to a Google app, you look to Google Photos, you look to Google Maps, you look to Gmail, and you see what Google is doing and how they do things to kind of create an authentic, idiomatic Android experience. And this is what I feel like we've been missing for large screens for sure, is that we need inspiration and we need guidelines and we need to know how to do things. And it's kind of like, you gave us a lot of like technical tools and APIs, but it's kind of like the inspiration and like the hard, like the real life examples that are been missing that I know I've been missing. Because I think sometimes saying, okay, make your apps great for large screens is great and all, but there's like a connection between, okay, sure, I can make it look not tiny, like make it look like the text is super tiny and there's tons of blank space. But to actually make an interesting interaction, we need examples and we need to know, like, we need to follow a lead a little bit and then maybe from there spring onto our killer large screen idea. So freaking finally, and they really need to keep doing this because I think, again, like it's always been the case for me that whenever I say, I need us to do this interaction this way. Look at how Gmail works. This is how people expect it to work. So I'm very much for this, and they need to keep this up if they want to get devs and keep devs on this large tablet chain. But that's just my personal opinion.
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is a yes and or a no but, and it actually may be both.
Both is okay.
So I do love to see these Google apps being updated for inspiration, and that is super useful because it gives designers some kind of ideas of what can be done and cool, metaphors. The problem is Google never does stuff consistently or consistently with the material design specs. So it becomes problematic because a designer will ask for something that is maybe kind of non-standard or weird. Based on one Google app doing it that way, because Google, where I would rather follow like design standards or something that are consistent. So
yeah,
it's a little bit of both, I think, actually.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So time will tell, but I'm looking forward to that. And Flo, you've got, where are you? There you are. Your other side of my shoulder.
I'm right over here.
There you go. You've got the next one. And this was a moment where I know a lot of people laughed out loud.
I did.
Yes, I did not laugh about this. I thought it was very... So Google Wallet is back. We kind of already saw this because anybody who saw the workspace updates that hit a couple of weeks ago saw the updated icons for this. So we kind of knew that like something was happening. And this icon looks vaguely familiar if you've ever looked on Passbook on iOS. So Google Wallet. It's back. It will replace Google Pay on the phone. That's going to happen automatically. So one day you'll wake up and you'll have a different icon. Unless you have an icon pack like me and the designer hasn't updated the icon pack, then it's still going to say Google Pay.
That's a problem.
Okay, whatever. So you told me to customize this thing.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Good point.
The nice thing about Google Wallet, so it is a secure digital credential store. So what it's going to do is it was going to house your credit and debit cards like it has been, your transit and event tickets like it kind of has been, your airline boarding passes like it has been, your loyalty and gift cards like it has been, and coming soon, your vaccination records, but also... Actually, it does do vaccination records now, but coming soon is driver's license and state IDs. That was the really big thing because now you'll have to think about one less thing when you think keys, wallet, phone before you leave the house.
Nice.
So you should know something. Unless your car has that ultra wideband technology, then you don't even need the keys. You just need your phone.
That'd be amazing.
I will say, all the joking about the name aside, this does seem like a good evolution.
Yeah.
Right? As someone who uses Google Pay now, and like I used it for my boarding pass recently on flights, and I will say, trying to find that stuff in the current app, and we talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, right, yep. Jason? Or talking about it can be like, if I didn't get that notification that my boarding pass was in GPay, I don't know if I could have found it again, and like finding my loyalty card is a hassle amongst all the offer and all that nonsense. Having that stuff isolated and functional, all joking aside, this looks like where it should be going, and where folks over at iOS seem to have with the Apple Wallet and all that sort of stuff. So I'm okay with it, but it's just too comical in terms of the naming and all that sort of stuff. So
well, Google's done this before. They did this with Google TV when they called it Google TV in the early 2010s. Then it went to Android TV, and now Android TV kind of still exists in Google TV.
Yeah,
right? So
it's even weirder.
It's a commentary on this just like idea that we can just tell users what to do and they'll do it. But it adds, this is why everybody calls it, oh, are you using Apple Pay?
Right.
Oh, are you going to use Apple Pay? Because nobody knows what Google's equivalent is. And I don't know that this branding is going to change it, but it'll be good for us Android users. So that's something to look forward to.
I guess the good news is it's still Google Pay when you're at a kiosk or when you're at a store, right? Google at least isn't going through this major name change on the technology itself, and that seems to be the differentiator. Google Wallet houses Google Pay. Google Wallet, has all of your cards and everything, but you use that to Google Pay at places where you see the Google Pay logo. And yeah, so I agree with what you both were saying as far as this. It's silly. Yeah. It's funny that Google has done it again where they've really come full circle with their naming conventions. Sometimes it just seems like maybe there isn't a forward thinking kind of element to how they name their products, because sometimes it really feels like that's the case, but I understand why they did it. And it's not a bad choice. It's just funny.
Yeah.
No, it's not a bad choice. Do I wish that they had a space for me to upload a virtual blackjack how to play card? Absolutely. That's something I'm going to miss, because that's something I carry around in my wallet for if I ever end up in Vegas, just like one morning. I don't know.
Yeah.
But the other news is I'm trying to manifest Vegas for myself. Don't mind me. I can't go until the kid's vaxxed. But anyway,
I was going to say you probably don't want to go right now. But
no. The last thing, and this is going to be good for copious online shoppers, which is that Chrome is going to get built-in virtual credit cards. My understanding is this is something I think other browsers do. So it's a security feature that hides your real credit card and details from sites. And I did ask if this is like tokenization on Google Pay. The difference is that instead of a random number generated for every single transaction, this is specifically a virtual card that lives specifically on your Google Chrome account. Okay. So when you pay for things, the online merchant will not see the physical card number. They will see whatever the virtual card number is, and that is what will be associated with your online payments. And you can cancel a card through a Google interface when this comes through, and you won't even have to deal with the annoying credit card company.
Awesome.
So,
yeah,
unless of course they call you to pay your bill, but that's your own thing.
Again, that's a you problem.
That's a you thing.
Yeah. I mean, this is very, very similar. At least some of this functionality sounds very similar to a sponsor. I believe there's still a sponsor on the network, Privacy, that does exactly this. And I mean, the idea is then you're not sharing your actual credit card number. You're sharing this kind of like this, it's almost like a credit card number shortcut that you can use on sites that are accepted as credit cards. And then if you ever want to like not pay for that service anymore, and maybe you canceled it and they still ended up charging you one last month or whatever, you can cut it off the source. And so it ends up being really useful for that. If that credit card number gets stolen or someone finds it, you can cancel it very easily, like you said, through the Google interface. So yeah, I think that's a pretty awesome security privacy feature. Privacy and security. Yeah. Good stuff. Like it. When you have the messaging beat, apparently.
I can't. I was going to drop a beat, but I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
it's not that cool. Well, RCS, y'all. Well, amidst all the kind of more flashy and kind of hardware announcements at Google I/O 2022, there was another announcement, and that is that RCS will have end-to-end encryption for group chats, quote, later this year. In an email sent to the press, Google stated that the feature will be rolling out later this year. It will be a beta first, so it's not kind of a free-for-all of RCS group chats being encrypted. But considering that one-to-one messaging or single person, how would you?
Yeah,
what's the opposite
one-to-one
of a group chat? One-to-one. There you go. One-to-one messaging already had end-to-end encryption support since late 2020, and since I feel like these days end-to-end encryption is kind of table stakes for messaging apps. I mean, later's better. Was it better late than never? But in the year of our smartphone 2022, it's probably about time that we got some end-to-end encryption for RCS. But hey, progress is progress.
Yeah.
And I noticed this last week during the keynote, and I thought, was it the keynote or the developer keynote?
It was during the keynote.
It was during the main keynote. During the main keynote, Google wanted to highlight the fact that RCS should and will hopefully be the future of messaging by stating that they, in fact, had 500 million people actively using RCS messaging, and then took, some time to say, quote, "We hope that every mobile operating system gets the message and upgrades to RCS. So your messages are private, no matter what device you're using." So I can't imagine whom they might be talking to with that, or who might be.
There's so many mobile operating systems out there. Like, take your pick.
I mean, really, there's just hundreds and so many out there. And I'm sure I can't imagine one of them that wouldn't want to make things easier for their users and communication by adopting freaking RCS already. But, hey, Google has confirmed 500 million people, and hopefully we'll get a few more million on there sooner rather than later. But I did laugh when I heard this.
Of course.
I mean,
yeah.
I think that, it's very impressive to have 5 million users, but to kind of say it during the keynote, I was actually sitting in my chair and I think I literally said, "Oh, that's spicy." That's spicy right there. So yeah, just for our entertainment and possibly not schadenfreude, but like hopes for a new, better connected with RCS future. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Are we hopeful? Do we think that all of the other mobile operating systems, all the many of them out there, are going to support RCS, or just really the one that
I think you got to stay optimistic. You got to stay optimistic. RCS is the future.
That's a good thing.
I don't know, Mike. What do you think? Do you think it's ever going to happen?
I hope so, but with Google, you never know. Obviously.
I don't know, you guys. If you look
apps.
at Twitter right now, you'll see people complaining about the spam they get through RCS, which I could see that
That's
weaponized
true.
against Android from Apple's camp.
That's a really good point, Flo. I have been seeing a lot of that on Twitter lately. I haven't gotten any of that.
I've been following
spam,
the hashtag.
But
so
I mean, I would not be happy if I was getting spammed like that. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, RCS is a very rich graphical, kind of thing. Whatever you want to call it. Why is the word escaping me right now? But so it has the ability for companies to share that stuff, but that's not really like that spam. Is that a result of RCS, or is that just a result of someone having shared their number with the wrong place or something?
Right. Yeah. Like, is it being enabled by RCS? Which I don't think so. I think because you need it's. I guess could RCS be utilized with a bank of numbers to increase spam output? Probably, but it, to your point, Jason, it requires the numbers to be gathered by the spammer, right?
Yeah. It's just the spam that you're getting is way more graphically rich than it would be if you were getting SMS messages.
Which honestly, if I'm going to get spam, I would like graphically rich spam. I'm just saying. So,
I suppose so.
I don't know. I actually end up getting spam through WhatsApp. So an app that will not be named I bought a premium subscription to this app that I was using quite a bit. And part of that was, personal service, but personal service meant adding my number to a huge WhatsApp chat.
Oh,
and I immediately started getting spam calls and spam. So I'm kind of more in Ron's camp where, I mean, it's people, and it's the fact that phone numbers need to work the way they work. And hey, I got spam on WhatsApp. So I don't know, maybe that's just me being bitter. And I did immediately leave the WhatsApp chat, and I haven't yet, but I need to leave them a 1-star review because that's just unacceptable.
No good.
But yes,
that is unacceptable.
no good. Yeah,
Super lame.
I'll get weird WhatsApp spam every once in a while, but it's like, it feels more like phishing instead of spam. It's somebody like, hey, been a while. And I'm just like, I don't know you, block.
Yeah.
And so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Same.
But
Same.
Anyway. All right. And then moving on, we got Google can't stop there, right? There's even more app updates.
Won't stop.
This was very neat. Google Maps is getting an immersive view that brings maps more to life, very visual and very graphical. This demo was one of the moments where I went, oh, that's pretty cool, where they are using their photography to give you a more immersive 3D almost, especially like the walkthroughs of restaurants and things like that, like to go into a space based off the data that they have about those locations. That was pretty cool. I never see myself using it, but it was still pretty neat. The demo was neat. You could really go to London. You can really go to London in Google Maps. It is almost video game like. But
totally.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. So immersive view on Maps. Google Docs is getting an AI-assisted TLDR feature that summarizes a document for you, which made me laugh out loud because really our attention span is so short that we need to summarize the doc. Really,
heck yeah. Thank you, AI, for doing the hard work. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
My advice: don't rely on that and go into a meeting and just
agreed.
spout off the computer generated TLDR,
yeah,
and
exactly.
expect to still have your job. Like,
but then speaking of AI, they did show off a very cool AI test kitchen for Android, which is a way to put all the AI smarts to the test in unique different ways. It's using the LaMDA2 AI language model. So instead of talking to you, you ask it questions in one of three areas. So imagine it. Say, imagine a marshmallow volcano, or you can talk about it, talk to a tennis ball about a dog, and list it. I want to plant a vegetable garden, which are all different ways to come up with, these kind of AI, back and forth in terms of that, which is pretty cool. Like, it's like cool. Giving you little test beds for, AI applications down the road. That's pretty neat. I don't know. So.
Yeah,
lots of stuff.
I mean, they use the planting a garden thing as the list it, and having the AI basically just detail. All right, so here's the steps. Here's what you need to do first. Just like coming up with it, instead of searching online to find that one article, it's filled with a million different ads or whatever. Who knows how well it works? We don't have access to that app yet. It's coming, as with everything else at I/O later this year. Yeah. But I would love to play around with that. That sounds really intriguing to me. Really interesting. Like telling a computer to tell me about, like, what was that example? Imagine a marshmallow volcano. Like, I don't know how to describe a marshmallow volcano, but a computer that's trained with the right data set could probably get really creative about this. And like, what would it even say? I just think that's neat.
Would it be a volcano made of marshmallows?
Exactly.
Would it be a regular volcano that spits out marshmallows? Is it both simultaneously?
I don't know.
Who knows?
The computer will. The AI is just gonna answer that question for you. I can't answer that. I
need
AI.
to know. Okay, I'm going to go ask the AI. I need to know.
Pretty neat stuff. Definitely an example of how advanced Google is when it comes to artificial intelligence. Really neat stuff there. All right, so this was a developer conference, which means there was developer-focused news at Google I/O. That's what we're going to talk about up next. All right, so Win and Michael, this is the ball's in your court, because this is the stuff that you both understand far better than I think the rest of us here sitting at the table. But let's start with you, Win. As far as the week was concerned, the kind of the short week of information that was really tailored for developers. What was the Kotlin moment? That's the only example that I have where I knew, I didn't know a whole lot about developing, but I knew at that Google I/O that was a really big deal, that developers really cared about that announcement, right? So was there that moment at this Google I/O?
Not really. I mean, I say that just because that one's really hard to top, and that's kind of one of those, I think, and Mike definitely pipe in whenever, that's kind of one of those, our day-to-day life totally changes kind of moments. I think Compose is not a bad second to that, and that was last year. So we're kind of back to kind of, I want to say business as usual. For me, it was like business as usual, but I don't mean that in a bad way, because I feel like a lot of the things that I get excited about are what's new in Android development tools, which is basically, how do I do things faster and better? Yeah. And there's always going to be things like that. So, and it's really interesting because I think, on a day-to-day, I think we're always trying to make our productivity faster. And I know that sounds so freaking boring, but I want to do things faster. I want to be able to write some code and see how it changes. And I want to be able to, do it in the easiest way possible. And so there's always going to be some demo that we enjoy, seeing that it promises to make our lives faster and better. And so there are things like, in the new version of Android Studio, which, by the way, remember, is using cute animal names. So if you missed sweets for your Android versions, you can go to Android Studio, where we have Android Studio Electric Eel, which is pretty amazing. Electric Eel. And so an example of this is Live Edit. So what's really cool is that this is with Live Edit is that with Jetpack Compose, I think it's the animation scroller actually. It's everything. I know if you're looking at screenshots of Android Studio, I'm sure all the Android devs are like, and then everyone else is like, yep.
Looks like a tool.
Looks great. I mean, that also is a great thing. And that is an animation debugging tool. You can visualize things, but that's basically what we get, you know, like, yeah, I think like you watch like a television show and you think that devs are all just like on the you know, on the keyboards with like text scrolling by. It's like, nah, we like tools. We like visualizations. We like, you know, being able to debug things with their eyes and not, you know, and not just having to build things. So one of the things I was most excited about is Live Edit. And this is basically coming from Jetpack Compose, the modern Android toolkit, which I've talked about way too much before. And basically, as you're editing code, you can see the user interface update as you edit, which is a huge deal. Because normally what I do when I'm developing is, and maybe I'm the inefficient one, I'm going to embarrass myself in front of Mike, but I'll make some changes. I'll run the app. It deploys on my phone. I look at my phone and say, okay, well, that didn't look good. I'll change it to like, you know, 18 like pixels this way, and I'll make this one red. Build the thing, let it deploy to my phone, check it, and then so this is as it might seem from that very boring description of my day to day. Tools like this are the things that I know I love and that will help make my life better. And yeah, just other things like, you know, with all these like different form factors, we're looking at ways of basically visualizing what a user interface might look like on a tablet, on a phone, on something in between, all at once. So there's a lot of tools like that. And then, yeah, I don't know, Mike, what were you most excited about from some of the dev side stuff?
So just like you said, lots of different tools that just make our job easier. The one thing I will say about this I/O, and there wasn't really like a big like aha moment, which is kind of good because even though me and Wen are both like Android developers that stay up on stuff, I will say that I never feel like I'm up on stuff. I feel like I'm always a step behind. And for once, I finally understand Compose at the same time as everybody else does. And I'm finally starting to understand some of these other tools.
Caught up.
I caught up for once. And I feel like I'm so happy that they didn't introduce something like, I didn't really know Kotlin when they introduced it. It's been a couple of years. I was late to that. So anyway, for
know
once,
it now, though.
I don't feel like they sideswiped. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I do know Compose. Luckily, I was able to kind of get on the bandwagon early for that. And it is really wonderful. But it did feel like just some iterations. The other thing I'll say about that is they've gone to a different model of delivering stuff where they're not as driven by I/O. In particular with the tools, they're releasing Android Studio pretty often and frequently have that cool tool already in there. So it's not like they're just dumping everything at I/O.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. I will something of note is that, you know, they're bringing WearOS back, and like my experience with WearOS as a developer hasn't been that flashy or anything. We had a Trello WearOS app for a while. It wasn't that great to work with. We never could nail down like, other than notifications, what do we need a watch app for? But what is interesting is that, as I think it's fair to say that developers unabashedly like Compose. Like, I'm sure there's someone out there who doesn't, but unabashedly we all like it, and it's all made our lives easier. There is going to be Compose for WearOS. So I think along with kind of the story of, hey, WearOS 3, we're partnering with Samsung, you got a Pixel Watch, they're adding in better development tools for it. And I think that's just something that we've all complained about, is that, you know, this new thing is going to take extra time. This new thing is hard to use. Don't even get me started on widgets. But so Compose for WearOS is, widgets are a nightmare to do, y'all. I mean, like, I know like widgets are awesome, and if you have a widget that you really love, it's important to you. They're so freaking awful to dev for. Anyway, but you don't have to worry about that. Hopefully with WearOS, you'll have Compose, which is again the modern Android toolkit. So I thought that was kind of neat. Personally, I don't see us gravitating towards WearOS right away, just because again, we have it for notifications. Yay. Like we're not a fitness app. We're not something that uses geolocation or anything that might really take advantage of Wear, but having Compose for things and bringing that ease, that productivity, and that joy to another form factor is the right way to go. So I don't know. Mike, when's the last time you wrote a WearOS app? Or have you? I've never personally done it. It was there when I got there. Okay.
I'm not that interested in the Wear platform personally, to be honest.
Well, it's a good thing Google's releasing its Pixel Watch.
Yeah.
To
please make something
profit
for this
off of
watch.
all that excitement.
Please make something for me. There's nothing cute right now that I can put on this as a watch face. Like, I need something cute with complications.
Oh, the watch faces. I was going to say that's a cute watch, but it's the watch faces that you can't find.
It's the only watch. It was the watch, by the way, that pretty much everybody was wearing in the Google I/O keynote, except for Rick Osterloh.
Was he wearing the Pixel watch?
He was wearing the Pixel watch, yeah, because he was like, I'm wearing the Pixel watch. Look at me.
Revealed it.
But everybody else,
we were all trying to figure it out too. We were like,
on.
is that the Pixel watch? Is that the Pixel watch? And then he comes out and revealed it, of course. Well, cool. One question I have about the live edit is because I know that, it's part of the tool. So it's not really emulation in any way, shape, or form, right? Like when I think of some of these tools and I think of complaints that I've heard over the years is that like Android emulation through these tools has been really slow for a long period of time. How does Live Edit get around that? Because my understanding of this is that as you're typing things in, you see it immediately, right?
Yeah, so it's slightly different. Actually, this isn't really an emulator. In Compose, there's, and this is the same as actually in SwiftUI, there's a preview, which allows you to preview the Compose component that you're looking at.
Okay.
And so the Live Edit is directly tying into that Compose component. So it's not like we're emulating a full phone.
Got it.
It's
okay.
a much smaller like viewer. And the cool thing is, and this is very much related, React Native and just the React programming platform has this sort of instant UI refresh built in, which is one of the big things that people love about that platform, the ability just to change something. You change a color or change a dimension and it just shows up in the next screen without that tedious step of needing to deploy wait for that cycle.
Oh my goodness. That seems like a
Too.
change.
Yeah.
That seems like a change that once you have that, you can't imagine how you ever did without it, right? Like just the amount of time that must take.
It is. And we've kind of had something like this. So I kind of, it made me think a little bit of the Google Wall story, but not really. And that there was some years ago, I think 2017, they announced instant run. Nope. Hold on, not instant apps. Is it instant run?
It's instant run.
Instant run, which is basically for the old view system, kind of a similar idea where I think you still had to hit a button, but it was a lot faster. You weren't like redeploying the entire application. It was meant to just apply changes. And I think what was interesting is that actually at the Fireside chat, it might have been the Fireside chat or the other kind of Android thing that Mike and I were at last week, is that Tor Norby, who works on the Android Studio team, explained that it's very specific to Compose, that they can do this intensely fast, hot swapping of this code. And it has a lot to do with the way Compose is. He's a lot smarter than me and can explain it way better. So if you're actually interested in how this works on Android versus say Flutter and React, go watch the Fireside chat. I think is when Tor addresses it. It might be in something else, but yeah, it's basically a hot swapping out changes. And actually Compose had this already. It was like called live literals, but it was very specifically if you have a string or a number, like just a plain old number, which rarely happens in an actual program, but it allowed you to change the number, and whether it was like a real device or an emulator, you would just see like the change immediately because it was able to swap out that value because it's basically a hard-coded value. It would swap out just instantly. So it was a great way of, say, if you have like your designer or someone else sitting beside you to kind of be able to pixel push and make changes really quickly without having to repeatedly, again, deploy and someone to build. So and so when we all saw Live Edit, we're like, oh, it's like instant run. But I believe someone specifically asked one of the Android Studio team, oh, well, how is it different this time? And it's different because Compose. Yes. So it looks very promising. I need to download Electric Eel. I think I downloaded it. I just haven't tried it yet. So yes, it's magic. Tools team magic is what I understand it to be.
It's
and
electric.
That's all I need to know. It's electric.
It's
sorry.
electric. Yes. Okay.
Oh, magic.
All right. Excellent. And with that, was there any final anything about developer tools or any other announcements that you wanted to mention before we wrap things up?
No, just
Anything
go watch
else
the keynotes.
Okay.
Watch the keynotes. There's a lot of really nice little things, but it's always going to be like that. Definitely try Compose and try out Electric Eel and give feedback early because that's super important. They actually really do listen. So if you're a developer out there, please give things a shot and be loud about what you like and don't like. They're listening.
Right on.
They really are. That sounds creepy.
They're listening. Well, and you know, it's
Maybe
sort
not
of-
I
like
mean,
this
if you didn't
moment,
use the
but-
hardware mute on your Google Assistant device,
No,
they
I
might
was
be
gonna say,
listening.
she is always listening, regardless.
Yep. All right. Well, we have reached the end of this episode. It has been a very comprehensive roundup of everything shown off at Google I/O. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I know that I've enjoyed having you along, Mike. It's always great year after year to get you on either the pre or the post I/O show. So thank you for making that happen once again. It's great to see you.
Yep. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. So what do you
Follow
want
me on
people?
Twitter.
This is the end of the show where we let people kind of promote or whatever. So what you got?
I never have anything to promote, just myself, and just be nice to people. I think that's what I always say.
There you
Follow
go.
me on Twitter, and that's good enough.
Cool. At Mike Wolfson on Twitter if you want
At
to find
Mike Wolfson on Twitter.
Right on. Thank you, Mike. It's really good to see you.
Thanks. It's always fun.
Yeah. Maybe next time I'll see you at the actual Google I/O.
Yep.
Because
That's what we always say next year in Israel, next year in Mountain View.
Yes, there we go. Right on. Thank you, Mike. And then Flo, what you got going on? What do you want to talk about?
Well, you can find all my work over at gizmodo.com by typing in flowrights.tech into your URL bar. I just renewed that domain, so I hope it works.
It's a great domain, I have to say. I like it a lot.
Thank you. That's why I try to hold on to it. But also, I have a couple of other podcasts that I do. I am on the Relay FM network. I do Material podcast every week where I talk all about everything Google does, from Android to what they're doing on the web to what they're doing behind the scenes. I do that show with Andy and Notco every week, so please tune in over there. And also, I have a podcast over at Gizmodo called Gadgets, which you can tune in every week. I do that with my co-host over at Gizmodo, who is also my editor. And we've got a new video component coming for that. So that's something,
nice.
if you're interested in, come check us out. You know where to find me.
Yeah. You are busy. Oh, you had to get that in there at least once, didn't you, Burke?
Thank you, Burke.
Burke has an itchy email of the week trigger finger. So there we go. There we go. Well, thank you, Flo. It's always good to get you on.
Thank you guys
Happy
for
to see you
having
on
me.
this episode, especially.
I'm happy to be here.
Ron, what do you want people to know?
Just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at RonXO. And I've just been such a delight to hear Mike and Wynn and Flo talking about I/O and all this sort of stuff. And of course, you, Jason. I'm just so happy. Like this is what All About Android is all about this week's show. So,
Absolutely.
So
No,
let's
I totally
focus
agree.
on that. So
Yeah.
leave a good review for us, please. So.
Please.
Thank you, Ron. And then what about you, Wynn? What you got?
Let's see. So I actually did Android show stuff. It was very Android centric, but if you happen to check out the Android Fireside Chat, the content that Florina Muntanescu and I did kind of bookend it. There's a cute little section about Compose for WearOS. There's some funny bits in the middle where Florina and I kind of talk about things and sit around a nice big prediction conspiracy board, which I put on a joke from the show. We were talking about like rollable foldables, like rofflables, and that ended up on the board, but it's so tiny you can't see it. Rofflables. I was so proud. Yeah, it's not in this picture, but there are a couple of the promos you can see, like my conspiracy prediction board.
Yes.
And Rofflables was on there, but you can't read it. But it was there, and that was for our Android faithful.
Right
and that was like
on.
a call out to the show. So please check out the Android show. And if you like it, leave a thumbs up. I sound like a YouTuber now.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, leave a like. And if you care more about like kind of proper dev things, you can find me at randomlytyping.com, where a lot of my talks and my code and video of both are. And you can just find me generally, rambling about crap on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Code Monkey.
Right on. Y'all are so awesome. Thank you for doing this show today. You can find me at Jason Howell on Twitter. Also doing Tech News Weekly every Thursday with Micah Sargent, twit.tv/TNW. Big thanks to Burke behind the scenes, pushing the buttons, making things happen here live in the studio. Big thanks to Victor, even more behind the scenes. He's editing the show, publishing it, making sure that you have it awaiting you in your smartphone or wherever you get your podcast the following day. So Victor is the man that makes that happen. Don't forget, Club Twit is our subscription tier, our subscription service rather. If you want to get all of our shows without any ads, including any Club Twit ads like this one, twit.tv/clubtwit, $7 a month. That gets you all of our shows with no ads, an exclusive Twit Plus podcast feed, tons of extra content going in there all the time, not just pre and post show moments. We do put that in there from time to time, but also actual shows like Stacy's book club. And, we are doing a lot of AMAs there. I think we've got one coming up with Jerry Wagley, who works here in the studio. We've got I can't even remember. There's a lot of stuff happening right now, but if you're a member of Club Twit, you'll see it. So do that. You also get access to our members only Discord, $7 a month, twit.tv/clubtwit. But that is it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for watching and listening. I'm curious to see how much or how little news there is next week for the episode by comparison, but check back then and we'll see where that lands.
Everybody got their money's worth today.
Yes, exactly. The supersized episode.
For sure.
We'll see y'all next time on All About Android. Bye, everybody.
What a show.
Did you spend a lot of money on your brand new smartphone and then you look at the pictures on Facebook and Instagram and you're like, what in the world happened to that photo? Yes, you have. I know. It happens to all of us. Well, you need to check out my show, Hands On Photography, where I'm going to walk you through simple tips and tricks that are going to help make you get the most out of your smartphone camera or your DSLR or mirrorless, whatever you have. And those shots are going to look so much better. I promise you. So make sure you're tuned in to twit.tv/hop for Hands On Photography to find out more.